All right, shall we begin? All right, good evening and welcome to the work session for the Sherwood School Board. We have a work session tonight on bond oversight. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Chair Allen, members of the board. Tonight, we'll start out, I typically do follow-up topics, which I don't have any, but we do have a new face in the crowd. And so Mary, I'm gonna give you a quick heads up that I'm gonna come to you in a moment and have you introduce yourself to the board. But first I'll introduce the board members and have them give you a wave so you know who you're talking to. So Chair Allen is the one that kicked us off.
Hi there.
Vice Chair is Sue Hecker. We have Jessica Adamson.
Hello.
Eric Campbell. And Mike Hyland.
Hello.
Great, thank you, board members. And Mary joins us, she's with Cornerstone and is in a role similar to Casey's and is helping us on a couple of our, well, really all of our projects. And so I'll let her introduce herself, tell you where she's from and say hi.
Hi all, I'm Mary. I'm with the Cornerstone team. I will be working this summer with the district on specifically the Ridges and the middle school transformation projects. So I'll give you an update about those shortly. Excited to be in the Sherwood School District, and I'm finishing up some work over in Hillsborough School District.
Great, thank you, Mary. Mm-hmm. And with that, we will move on to the Sherwood High School progress. I see Dave's initials on the screen. Dave, are you able to hear me? And your mic is currently muted.
Yes, I am. I'm on board.
All right, I will start the presentation of the slide deck if you would like to walk us through, and if you need me to stop at any time, go ahead and let me know.
That'd be awesome. Are you going to run the video link first?
I am going to run the video link. It'll take me a second to get set up. One moment.
Awesome.
Is everyone able to see my slide deck here?
We're good.
Okay. And Dave, here's the video.
Cool. I'm going to talk kind of quick because we won't be able to stop it. So this is from the other day. You'll see that the trailers have moved and we're working in the northwest parking lot. We're working towards a paved date of the 22nd. If you're on the site and you drive by, you're going to see that the brick is now up, and the only area in the back that's not bricked is the white area should come around. We've been kind of busy on that. The ball field is now completed, varsity baseball, and we're now up on the northwest multi-use field, getting the turf down on that. Working on getting the roads around the site paved. Now that Haiti Road is complete, if you drive by, you'll see that we have finally cut this project in half, and we're working on getting the sidewalk around the backside of the stadium completed and all the way around to the stairs that we poured about a month and a half ago. If you drive by, you'll see that we are paving the track today. That's the first lift. Tomorrow morning, we'll start in on the second lift, and by the end of tomorrow, we will have the football stadium paved out. By the end of the week, we'll have the sidewalks connecting it. We're currently inside the restroom building. That's the one, if you drive by, has the wood roof on it right now. We went after that first, simply so we could get the plumbers in there fairly quickly. The front side of the Sector B is all buttoned up now. It's got all the sheet metal on it. This is really neat. It's going really fast. We are now poured out in the courtyard. We're ready for the AstroTurf to go in up underneath the Sky Bridge. The log benches have arrived, and you're going to see some photos here fairly quickly of the benches and that sort of thing going in. If you look at the front of Cascade Point, all the snorkel lifts, that's the governor's order to keep everybody 6 feet apart. So we now have a lot of people working at different angles, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward into the pictures.
Here's the picture.
So because you guys can't get on site, I tried to run around and take some photos yesterday of things that you wouldn't normally get to see. That's the ADA lift that's in the bottom of the orchestra pit. That's how people who are challenged can get things up and down, and it will get used for multiple things during the course of its life, I'm sure. Next photo. So I took that one the other night. That is standing down on the main gym floor, looking east up at the bleachers up on the Ox gym floor. They're spectacular, getting a lot of great comments on that. You can see the hoops are up right now. We've got those powered up, so we've been playing with those going up and down. And right now the main gym floor has its first 2 coats of sealer on it as of tonight. And we started sanding the Ox gym floor this afternoon. Want to go to the next photo? That's a picture of us at Cascade Point right now. We're buttoning up the architectural sheet metal on the left, and the glazers are on the right. This, we'll talk about this a little bit more. This happens to be one of the challenges I have with the governor's order. Those glass panels that go in there are 350 pounds a piece, and it takes 2 people working side by side to be able to set those. So the plywood wall behind it is what's allowing us to keep moving on all the interior finishes while we work through the challenges of what it's going to take to get that glass in. But right now it's not holding me up. We're moving past that. Can we go to the next photo? So I wouldn't want to give myself great photo points on this one, but these are the guys putting the hardener on the floor in the commons. And I apologize, the mural in the very back of the picture is up, which is Sherwood Forest, which is spectacular. You can see the grid ceilings going in. We've got the windows on the slope on the left end. The bathrooms are tricked out, and you'll see a kitchen photo. You can see the windows kind of lit on the right-hand side here in just a minute. I spoke of we're setting finishes in the courtyard. That happens to be one of the precast signs that got set yesterday. We got a few of those to get in. Those are kind of neat. And then in the back, you'll see there's still some yellow board available or needs covered on the left-hand side of that window. About 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're going to take the lift out there and we'll start putting that together. That's where the sheet metal guys are spending tomorrow afternoon. So we're getting pretty close inside the courtyard. It looks spectacular looking down at it from the sky bridge. So this happens to be your culinary classroom cook line right now. It's coming down to just finishes. Electricians are making the last connections and that sort of thing. And we got our electrical final in the ceiling this morning. So you'll see us in the next day or so starting to drop all the ceiling tile that are ready to go and stacked in the front room. If you're an admin right there, you are looking at your curtain wall that's going in. That big piece of plastic that's on the front of the building right now is allowing me to get. What I've done is take the temp wall out and moved it outside. I have the big V columns to get fireproof painted next week. Well, we're using this as an excuse to take the front entry out a little bit and allow me to have some equipment behind the curtain putting in your curtain wall. But you're looking back towards the entrance into admin this afternoon from this picture. And your log benches showed up yesterday, which was a big hit for us. Those are going to go in just a little bit east of the Sky Bridge. But those got delivered. We've been waiting for those for a little bit, so that's kind of fun to get those, getting some of the last of the finishes in. And I took this one the other night. I had an opportunity to be here late. You can see the red running track is finished up, and this is sitting on the highest row of the bleachers in the Ox gym on level 2 down to the main court. So the views are going to be spectacular. You will get a lot of comments on it. It's quite a show to see. But you can see all the AV speakers are in and that sort of thing, and they're just starting to work on getting things like that tested out. And it hasn't been that long ago that you guys were here and we're actually in our trailers. Well, the trailers are all gone now, and we're all up on the entrance road coming in off of Haiti that we paved early on. And we're all down into smaller trailers, and our group here is a lot smaller on site for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, this happens to be your parking lot looking down from the 3rd floor on the north side. Curbs are going in. As I said, we're going to do it in 2 sections. The left-hand side paves on the 22nd, and about a week and a half later, we'll have the balance of the parking lot paved out, and we'll be doing the service road around the east side. So that's been our big push to get the site all tied together and kind of get ourselves cleaned up so we can get out of here. What else do we have? This happens to be the other afternoon. They're putting down the running track. thought that was kind of fun to take a picture of that. That is looking towards, that's the very west wall of the main gym. You can see the basketball hoops are up because we have the bleachers. We just folded those back. They're all powered up. And this happens to be the theater right now. We're in there working. The clouds and things like that are all in, and you can see handrails. And on, again, not the greatest picture in the world, but you can see that we're just about ready. The seats are now here on site, and we're working on getting the walls ready to go for the paneling and that sort of thing. And then we'll start in on the seats. But we're on the last push of getting lifts and things out of the building. And this is our last area to get out of. And if you're looking down into the wrestling room for the third floor, this was yesterday morning early. They're rolling out the flooring, and I should have taken one this afternoon because they're just about done installing the flooring in the wrestling room. This is looking down through the big windows that you'll be able to watch the wrestling events and things like that from the third floor on Sector B. We've been busy. I know you guys haven't got to be out to the site, and we're under some fairly challenging conditions, but wanted to make sure you saw some of the things you can't see from out on the road looking in. Anybody have any questions? We have a quiet group tonight.
This is Mike Allen. We've heard a little bit about you're working at maybe 80% with with the virus, obviously. Do you anticipate any? I guess what are the risks and what's the likelihood that there could be some kind of a scheduling thing that could delay the opening in the fall?
Mike,
No,
this is Jim. I'm going to jump in. That's actually our focus topic tonight. So
Okay.
we'll have Dave hold off a bit. We'll cover a couple other topics, and then we'll come back to that and kind of go into great depth, not just at the high school, but at each of our program or each of our projects for that. So if you don't mind, I'll pause that. Great. Thank you. And with that, if there aren't questions kind of specifically about the high school and the tour you just got virtually, and I don't see anybody jumping in, I will move us along to the transformations. And
Just want to say it looks great. Thank you for the presentation. It looks fantastic as always.
People will be very impressed. We've got a lot of people working. I believe we're at 238 people today. The problem we have, and I want to just touch real quickly, is our people have the same concerns that everybody else has, and that's where it's been a long few weeks.
thanks. All right, we're going to move on to our transformation projects, and Casey and Mary are going to bring us up to date on those. And again, they're going to talk more about the projects and less about the pandemic impacts to us, because that will be our focus topic in just a few moments. Casey?
Thanks, Jim. So first, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come present to you. I'm going to get you started on kind of our transformation project. We're going to go over the 4 things, that kind of our construction update, mostly at EST, where we're at with permits, where we're at with buyout of the contract, and then also the schedule. So with that, I'll start with the elementary school, where we've had the most action by far. Skanska has begun the major scope of the existing auditorium gym area that is going to be transformed into the library and the new student entrance and the staircase downstairs. We're complete with the major demo in there. If you were to go in right now, you'd see the doorway that opens and goes towards the new hallway out of the library. It's just really neat. You can they have all the walls open downstairs, so it's pretty cool space for them to go in right now, and they're kind of really taking advantage of the opportunities presented to them. They've advanced kind of into what they call phase 1A, which is with school not opening, being closed down. They've taken opportunity to enhance some of the area that they needed to start on, and that wouldn't impact any of the teachers being able to use their spaces to get the rest of their stuff out. And so really take an opportunity if they can while they're there. Outside, they've graded out the playground area. So if you were to kind of go back to that cul-de-sac in the back of the middle school, you can kind of take a peek and you would see the new playground area being cut out there. We are, as far as permits go, we've received our mechanical, plumbing, and building permits from the city of Sherwood. The electrical permits are being obtained by the electrical contractor Cochran, and I believe they may even have that already. The only permit we don't have right now currently is the engineering permit, which is basically our underground stormwater utilities and erosion control pieces. And that is currently at the Clean Water Services for their review and approval, and expected to have that on or around April 20th. Regarding buyout, as you guys know, we use the letters of authorization to kind of establish our guaranteed maximum price, GMP, and right now we've signed all of our letters of authorization for the elementary school transformation project and are in the process of kind of writing up that GMP document. And we are looking really within that budget that we established last time we met to move forward with the projects. Regarding schedule, this is, like I said, they've taken advantage of the opportunity. They're currently ahead of schedule right now because they've been able to get some areas there. We've requested a modified schedule from Skanska to kind of show what they've done now, and then also to be able to start the summer work on May 11th, which gives our staff a time to pack up their boxes and movers to move them to where our areas of designated to be out of the way for Skanska to do their work, and to also move those items to their potential final destination early, so that our goal is to only move each object once, as much as possible. So with that, there's a lot of hurdles that we're going to talk about later on as far as procurement and manpower, and we have a presentation to kind of put forth to you on the COVID-19 impacts that are going to hamper that June 11th start, which gives us more time, but also creates different challenges. So that's the elementary school transformation update. Moving on to district office, we haven't started construction there. That's another one where we're looking for opportunities to get started early. We are in the middle of the permitting process. The city has completed their building, mechanical, and plumbing permit reviews and are awaiting the engineering report, which was submitted on Friday by KPFF. And so we are on our way to getting that over to CWS to start that review period too, which puts us on the track to be able to have all our permits before the end of the month or early May, and be able to start May 11th, which is kind of our schedule. Like I said, we have asked Skanska to put together a schedule to start on May 11th, and how that impacts will help us get done this summer as well. Regarding buyout, we still have a handful of LOAs to get complete to be able to establish that GMP. Our goal is to try to have that by the end of the month as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk through the Ridges and also the middle school transformation project.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Jim. I will start with the middle school transformation project. So this project was originally scheduled to start in mid-June after school originally was supposed to get out. Triplet Wellman has been able to get an advanced start in some areas. They've been doing some creative thinking. They're able to jump into the main gym and get the bleacher work done ahead of schedule. They were able to do that about a week and a half ago. Right now, we are trying to get a head start on the site work. But as Casey mentioned, we're running into some permit stuff and expect the engineering site permit no later than the end of this month. So that should allow us to pick up the site work and kind of get an advanced start on that before the mid-May start. With that, otherwise, with the middle school transformation, we have gotten approved permits for the building, mechanical, and plumbing, and Triplet will be working with their electrical sub to apply for the electrical permits for this building. Buyout, similar to the DOT project, that we have a few remaining LOAs that need to get signed. And so the plan is to have this all completed and signed so the GMP is established by the end of this month, so that when we begin construction in earnest in mid-May, we're ready with everything to go. And that process is going really smooth. Everything's looking good. And as I said, schedule right now is for a mid-May start there. Moving over to the Ridges. This project has not started at all. This was a hard bid project. So the buyout aspect of it was done in January when we bid the project. but we're working diligently with Russell to find areas to begin early, starting in mid-May there. Again, update on permits is that we have approved permits for the building, mechanical, and plumbing. I'm working with Russell again to apply for that electrical permit and confirming with the design team in the city that we're not in need of an engineering permit for this site. And again, scheduled to start the demo of areas in around May 11th. Those are my updates.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Casey or Mary regarding the transformations? Seeing some shaking of the head, so I'll move on to our financial summary. It's fairly brief this month. The kind of two areas that I'd draw your attention to is the new high school and the uncommitted budget, and it's down again, which is not surprising. We have just a couple months left on that, and we have an uncommitted budget of $230,000. And then the middle school transformation, the committed to date has jumped significantly, and that's just a recognition that we're starting to sign those LOAs at that project. So, any questions related to the financials? Okay. With that, I'm actually going to kick it back to Casey and Mary, and they're going to give us much of the information about the COVID-19 impacts, but we do have Sean and Dave on the phone, or Dave on the screen here to help us if we have questions that really are better suited for the two of them. We don't have anybody from Triplet Wellman or Russell, but I think we can cover most questions between the four experts we do have in the virtual room. Casey?
Thanks, Jim. So first, I got to thank Dave and Sean for providing me all this information. They're the ones who are kind of on the forefront of this and kind of gathering the data for us and keeping us up to date daily on just kind of the COVID-19 concerns from a EST new SHS project level. I think that overall the morale of the projects we're seeing be a little bit lower, and so that kind of speaks to saying 80% will be quiet that well, and we'll give Dave an opportunity to chime in with what he sees out there. But kind of the main things we want to talk about are kind of the updated schedules for EST and DOT based on the COVID-19 and Governor Brown's closing of the schools for the reindeer school year, and how we're gonna take advantage of that. The current plan with how we're going to deal with COVID-19, and we're dealing with it currently at both sites. The Skanska signage, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then the washing stations, how we're using restrooms, things like that, and then also the impacts that we're going to see from now until the end of summer that may impact our completions and how we're managing those on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I'll start with the current EST and DOT schedules. EST phase 1, we started planning. We've gotten through all the phases that we were planning on doing for over the course of this month to date, and then we've also started on what we call phase A, the locker room removal and opening the hallway up. Moving on. Phase 2 was planned to be starting on June 12th, roughly, and now we've asked them to revise that schedule to May 11th, and we're working with our move contractor to get all the contents moved by May 8th, and also our staff to have everything packed by May 4th. So we have a pretty aggressive schedule, and I mean we have our challenges with teachers and admin to get all their stuff packed when they have their own obstacles in the way right now. So we're working really hard with that team. Ken and Jim are both tackling the admin staff portion of that. Challenges with that is that all the other school projects in the Portland area are trying to do the same thing. So we're working with our subs, and I mean basically what we're up against is whether or not they have a capacity to take it on early, or if they have current projects they're trying to complete. And for the most part, we're getting positive feedback that we're going to get crews. It may not be the full crew that we were expecting in June, but with the COVID challenge is any extra time is going to help with that. So we're going to take whatever we can get, and they're going to make the schedule work accordingly with the extra time they have available. Procurement of materials is a big challenge. As you know, many states have not have more essential, non-essential shutdowns than we do, and they're shut down production at the locker plant. That doesn't affect the EST and DOT, but also fire alarm materials, train. Many manufacturers are starting to shut down. We daily, just about, it seems that Skanska has given us some kind of update on a potential issue. And some of those are big, and some of them are minor, and some of them are just CYA. But every one of those is considered, and we're keeping a kind of a log of all those issues as they come up. Some of the things that Skanska's done to kind of mitigate the spread and also the COVID-19 is that they've canceled the group stretch and flex, which I'm sure you guys have all heard about, how they get together in the morning, don't do their daily huddle. 6-foot social distancing is required for all of their work tasks, and it's hard. Some of it's hard to do, and we'll get to some of the ones that are going to cause us a schedule challenge. All meetings are done by WebEx. We have no on-site meetings. There's zero tolerance for sicknesses on site. Anybody who's sick stays home, regardless of what that sickness is. There's no visitors allowed in the trailers. They've hired a sanitation company to be ready if ever needed, to make sure that we can get in and quickly get the areas sanitized that need to be sanitized so we can keep work moving. Increase the number of available hand washing stations. If you were to go up to the site right now, right by the main entrance is three sinks that have Instahots there that they can wash their hands as they go in and out of the building. There's Purell hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. And then also we've added signage that kind of reminds the workers of the 6-foot rule at all times. They have a couple of 6-foot poles that the project engineers are manned with when they walk around to kind of as just a sign of what 6 foot looks like. So it's a very diligent effort on the Skanska team to make sure that we stay moving and that we stay working towards our goal of completion in May. I mean, and knowing that's a goal at this point, and so it's something they continue to hammer it home, and they're not just allowing this to get in the way and find reasons to stop. They're finding reasons to move forward. So it's very encouraging to see that happen. I would talk through a couple of specific examples of the COVID. I'll talk specifically at SHS. We had a crew member that was sick that was doing the work out at the restroom building, and that entire crew had to go home for the day because they worked so close together. So that set us back a few days in the restroom building, which isn't really a big schedule driver, but it's right now. I mean, every little stop matters. Soriano, who's doing the flooring, and all of them went home for the week. We lost a couple days there, and that had impacts to our bleacher company and then other things. So, and it's kind of a trickle down effect when that happens. So mitigating people coming on site that are sick is a huge aspect of what they're doing. There's a facility shutdown up in Washington that manufactured their miscellaneous steel. And luckily for us, we're past all that. But if there was to be something that we needed, that would be a potential problem. Right now, we're not foreseeing that being an issue. Another minor delay, but over in Florida, they're building us a portable mound for our baseball field. That facility is shut down. Finish Line, who does all of our concrete cutting for our slab on grades, and has shut down their shop. The waste, the sign, the person actually, the big Sherwood sign that goes above the main entrance to the right there. Their manufacturing plant is closed, so we're trying to find another manufacturing plant that can make that for us.
Can we interrupt for a question from Jessica?
Yes.
Yeah, and this can come at the end, but I'm really curious, Casey, whether we're doing things like, or what's the protocol around workers being able to wear masks on site that are not necessarily N95, but whether homemade or whether employers are providing masks, especially when folks are working so close together, whether or not there's temperature checks. I mean, you've got 200 and some odd people on site. That's a lot of folks. And even if you tell them to stay 6 feet apart, how are protecting people from being on site if they're running a temperature? And then just what's the protocol around lunch and rest breaks and providing enough space for people to be able to do that so that they're also staying far apart. I'm just feel like we have an obligation as the owner to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that that site stays safe, and all of our sites throughout the summer stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'll let Dave chime in on the answering those questions because he's the one out there battling it every day.
So I appreciate your comment. We take that. I am on the exact same page as you. We have an obligation, if we're working these people, to make sure that we give them the best chance for all the issues that you discussed. So some of the things that we have going on is, yes, we're probably 75% masks on people right now, to answer that part of your question. The lunchroom question is gotten a little bit easier with Haiti Road open. Most of the people are wanting to eat in their own cars. So that was a big deal for me to get Haiti open so we could get our close craft parking taken care of. We also have more than, well, I think we're up to 5 of the classrooms set up with folding chairs set on a grid that's about 8 feet apart, just so they can have a place in the building on the days that the weather isn't as good as it should be, and they have a place to eat. We have multiple areas like that going. We have opened up the restrooms, because I now have hot and cold running water. We're not letting them use the toilet portions of it, but what we are using are the sinks and things like that, and monitoring those daily to make sure that they're staying clean and neat and set up so that people have a constant vigilant place to wash their hands and keep after it. We have 4 people from different companies that spend nothing but all day long going around coaching people to remind them about the social distancing. It's challenging, as you mentioned, simply because our industry has always been shoulder to shoulder working together, and getting people to break that habit. We started that as soon as Governor Brown allowed us to be an essential industry. So there is an extremely large focus on it. In addition to that, you'll see our signs if you drive by. We've had that sign shrunk down, so we have oversized hard hat stickers on every person, in an attempt not for the person that's wearing it, but for the person walking up on them to remember that you owe that person their 6 foot of space. So I'm spending about 12 hours a day out there making sure that people are reminded on that. And there's 4 of us out there doing that to make sure that we're moving people forward and around stuff. We've got our staircases set up. So we have upstairs and then downstairs on other staircases, so people aren't crossing each other. We're doing a lot of different things, but yes, that's what we're doing to keep people moving. The temperature thing got to be an issue really early on. There's a lot of legal ramifications to that, and we were advised by legal counsel that that is not something we can really do. But what we have found is each of the companies have a representative, in the morning they're doing their flex on their own in big pods. If you drive by the site at 7, you'll see big groups all over the place, but all spread out, where they're required to do a quick check on each person to make sure that everybody's in decent shape to go in and work. And we have had people, our people are voluntarily pulling themselves out for the couple of days if they don't feel well. The problem is right now we have a pollen count that's about 9.7, which is making it a little interesting. But if you don't feel well and you go home, you do not come back without a note from the doctor saying that you're cleared and you've been tested and you're good to go. So other than our one false one from the people doing the wood roofs at the restrooms, we have been blessed to be able to keep moving.
Hey, Dave, I do have a question about that last comment.
Yes, sir.
They can't get a test under those circumstances, so I'm not sure how they're coming back to work.
Well, what they're doing is going in and making sure that I want to get this right, that the symptoms that they have are not concurrent with the COVID virus symptoms. That's how the doctors are sending it back with notes saying that they're fine and good to go.
Okay. Guidance to healthcare has to do with how many days you're symptom free.
Yes,
After a point that you have symptoms, just I think probably that's what the doctors should be using.
yes.
Dave, I'm really, really pleased to hear all of the work that you all are doing. And I know that is incredibly time intensive and takes a ton of effort. But we really appreciate it because I think that it's really important that that our sites are not sites where complaints are coming in from workers feeling unsafe, because everyone is working so hard right now, not only to achieve this goal, but also to try and make sure that everyone's feeling safe and supported. And I'm just really pleased to hear that ethic is happening here. And I really hope that we're able to set similar parameters on our other transformation sites. So thank you for that.
It is a very large focus. We have WebEx meetings nearly daily from our EHS people, making sure that we have the best information available on what's going on. I know there is movement right now at OSHA about some of the restraints we have of working 6 feet apart, that they're trying to come up with procedures that allow the workers to be protected and still get certain tasks completed under the proper condition. And like I said, that's above my pay grade, but we have people in our EHS department and multiple people working through what that would be, what that would look like. And we're expecting to see some sort of movement in the next 2 weeks to be able to come up with a procedure that works and have the proper protective gear available to do these things. But until I have that, our company policy is 6 feet is 6 feet. We don't make an exception. And if we could not figure out how to do it within that parameter, that task has to stop and we have to work around it and come back and get it. That's my marching orders.
That's wonderful.
This is Jim. I'm going to jump in and give us a bit of a time check. We're about 2/3 of the way through our meeting, and I'd like to make sure that Casey and Mary have a chance to talk about each of the transformation projects and the effects of COVID on that. I'm also going to give Ken a heads up that there's a question in the chat about student materials, student belongings, and what we're going to do there. And so, Ken, I'm going to ask you at the appropriate time to jump in and share what you know about that. Casey?
Yeah. Okay. So I just got a couple more things to go over. Probably one of the bigger things that's kind of, is big right now is that we don't have a delivery date for our playground equipment, which is, at this point in the game is a little bit troublesome. So that's one that we're tracking really hard right now, is figuring out the playground equipment. We found someone else that can help us with some of the fire alarm equipment. This is DOT ESP. And so I think our biggest challenge really, though, that we can't really foresee is just how the reduced, how the workforce and the productivity that we are used to is going to be able to keep us on our schedule with the summer projects. I mean, our high school project is far enough along that we aren't concerned with being able to open for fall by any means. It's our summer projects is where probably our biggest risk is, and we're going to be watching that very diligently in the first couple of weeks. So far, what Bill is the superintendent and project manager over at EST, Patrick, have seen is that they're able to keep up. And so, I mean, people kind of feel that pressure of one of these projects like this, and so that helps being a motivator. So yeah, it's a very unique world we're living in. And I think that, Skanska for sure has meeting the challenge. We've been, and I know Mary and myself have been talking to Russell and Triplet as well, and I'll let her speak to that now.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate that. I'll kind of go in the same order that Casey went. Start with schedules, kind of move to procurement, the CDC guidelines, how Triplet and Russell are handling the COVID impacts. So as I stated earlier in my first part of this meeting was that the challenge here is expediting the schedule up to May 11th. Everybody had planned for and they had staffing for a June 15th start date. And so we're asking everyone to expedite that to May 11th. I will say that Triplet and Russell are working very diligently to make this happen, and it's requiring a lot of creative thinking on both parts. I know Triplet, like I said, they started earlier on the bleachers where they were able to get in and it didn't impact any moves, didn't require any moves, and things like that. So they're thinking very creatively like that. Over at the Ridges, the work with Russell, fortunately or unfortunately, most of that entire project impacts something as it relates to moves. And so Russell's kind of right now looking at the exterior site work and how we can get a jump on that, and things like that. So just, again, thinking creatively with our schedules so that we can begin early so that we have enough time to meet our August deadlines, knowing that we have to work within these parameters that state that you can't have more than 10 people in a certain area. You have to be 6 feet apart. As for procurement, I am seeing submittals flying through from Triplet and Russell. Everyone is working diligently to get all of the product submitted to the design team. And the design team, thank you, Brick, is working diligently to turn those over fairly quickly, sometimes in less than 24 hours, so that we can get into the supply chain. That's one of our things. And so because what I'm hearing from certain contractors is that lighting is delayed 2 weeks. So jumping in now, and then the challenge will be, where do we store that lighting? But that's a good challenge to have. Like, I'd rather have this challenge of where do I store that material than I'm sitting here in late July and I don't have those materials. So trying to get a head start on all of that and pushing contractors to really jump into the procurement game as soon as possible, knowing that they weren't planning to do this till a little bit later. As for kind of COVID and CDC guidelines, because we are not on these sites yet, Triplet hasn't posted up signs. Russell hasn't posted signs at Ridges. What they have provided to me is what they are doing at other sites, and it is very similar to what Casey and Dave shared with Skanska, is that everybody's following the CDC guidelines. There's no longer on-site meetings, moving everything as much to a digital platform as possible. Where there's work that requires you to be in close proximity, trying to think creatively about how do we do that work without compromising that 6 feet of distance. Is it possible to use a Tyvek suit to have them because we have to lift materials or move heavy materials? Is that okay with OSHA? Just constantly kind of asking those questions and all of that. Again, everybody has a super strong sick policy. If you are sick, stay home, don't come in, because that'll shut down a whole area, and we don't have the time to shut down whole areas on these summer projects and be able to deliver our dates. So those are kind of some of the, to not get into the specifics, and I can share the specifics once we have those safety protocols, which we should have within the coming weeks once we start construction set up, and we can get those to you. Other things that delivery dates, like I said, kind of just concern over that, and hoping that our concern is, where do we store the material now versus trying to get backlogged with it later. So those are kind of the general updates at the Ridges and MST.
Jim, could I add 2 other things, please?
Please do, Rick.
So I think the board and administration should know that all our contractors are doing an incredible job. What Skanska is doing is incredible. And what we're trying to do is make sure that safety stays our #1 goal. And we work really hard on that every day. One of the things that is a result of the COVID is contractors are required to put us on notice that they can't anticipate at this time what the impacts might be from a schedule perspective and from a cost perspective. And so that's another thing that we're going to have to work through. Right now, we believe that because of the early start, that gives us more assurance that we'll be ready for staff in August. But the information and impacts for the supply chain changes regularly. The last thing is, as we do on all renovation projects, we'll focus on what we have to do to get occupancy, which is the legal right to occupy the space from the city. Playgrounds are important, but they don't impact our occupancy. And so what the teams are working on is, what do we have to do to be able to reoccupy, or in the new high school's case, to occupy. We've had several meetings with the city already to talk about that. They have been very committed to working with us. So I just want the board to hear those updates along with what's happening on a project by project basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I'll open up in just a moment to questions generally, but I'm going to jump back to Ken and ask Ken to paraphrase the question in the chat and then give us the information that you have, please.
This is Ken. Good evening. The question is about how we will be trying to get student stuff, kid stuff back to them, like locker contents, the coats and the things in their desks and those kinds of things. And so we met with all of our principals this morning and asked them each to develop a plan for doing this in the next couple of weeks. It involves bringing in and utilizing our classified staff to clean out lockers or desks, to bag those. And then schools are developing a plan for distributing those. And I'll give you an example. Sherwood Middle School has developed their plan already, as has Laurel Ridge. And in their plan, they will have curbside service. So people will pull up in their car, they'll say what their name is. A runner will bring their bag out and hand it to them in their car, and they'll never get out of their vehicle. And so that's one of the ways that we'll be getting stuff back. And it should happen in the next 3 weeks at all of our schools.
Thank you, Ken. Now I'd open it up generally to any questions people may have related to COVID-19's impacts. Comments are also welcome.
Any questions or comments, anyone?
So from a financial standpoint, we feel like we're I mean, part of this is it doesn't really matter how much money you have. You are kind of stuck with whatever you're stuck with in terms of supply availability. But do we still feel like we are financially as on track as we can be given all of the uncertainty?
This is Jim. I would say aside from COVID-19, absolutely. COVID-19's impacts are really just unknown at the moment, and Rick and others may be better able to speak to it, but until we know those impacts, I don't know that we know the financial impact to us. That's a pretty wishy-washy answer, and I apologize, but I'm not sure I have one that's any better.
No, that's, I mean, it's as honest as you can be, and I appreciate that. So sorry, Rick.
Great question. So we have been focusing on the available contingencies that we have that are uncommitted. And we have available contingencies at the transformations and a small available contingency at the high school. And so we're beginning to kind of do a laser focus on how much money do we have, so that when issues come up, either the normal things that are in construction, unforeseen conditions and things like that, we're ready to deal with them. We have recommended, and the district has agreed, that we're going to build what's designed right now. And if we come up with great ideas, we're not going to make any changes now. We're just going to go buy what's designed. And then if there's great ideas, we'll deal with those after we successfully get completed. And then additionally, we're working hard. We anticipate not having to pay the transportation tax We're in conversation with the city about that. That could save us about $800,000 from our current budget. And then Casey, who we didn't talk about how the road projects are going, but they're on schedule now. We think they're under budget, and we've reached out to the county staff to give us an update on that. So I guess in summary, we're looking at the budgets we have and managing them as aggressively as we can. And we're looking at other things that may generate savings that could give us more financial flexibility as we work through this.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
This is Mike. Is as far as this, you mentioned the supply chain a few times. Are there specific items that you're most worried about at specific at the transition sites or at the high school, or is there a lot of unknowns, and is there a date that we'll have a better idea if the supply chain is really going to affect us?
Real quick, I'll speak on one that we heard at MST that really has me concerned is the lockers. There's a big locker scope at the MST project, and right now that plant is shut down, and they're starting to open things up in Florida, which I'm sure you've heard. So that's encouraging, but we haven't gotten an updated date that I've heard. And Mary, do we have an updated date on lockers?
I don't have any updates. I still have Triplet's still tracking it as an area of concern.
Yeah. So that's a big one for us. Sean, do you want to weigh in on any of the EST DOT projects as far as supply chain?
Well, you mentioned the playground, hillside equipment at the EST. That's one we don't have. We haven't found a resolution yet. We're still working on that. The high school, you mentioned the letters for the exterior sign. That is one. I actually just got an email while I was in this that they found an alternate. So now we can work through that and see if that will work. But a lot of the materials for the high school site are already delivered or very close to being delivered. There is, we mentioned a couple already. We're tackling the issues as they come up. One issue came up on the DOT, the manufacturer for the fire alarm shut down. So, but we're looking at it's sourcing different parts, and it's kind of changing every week. As you mentioned, they might, this isn't easy to plan for because things keep changing and it's very fluid. And so we're getting notices, or we're getting notified, as they come up.
Thanks,
but
Sean.
nothing that's stopping the project yet. Nothing like that.
I can add a couple just from the two projects that I'm managing. Casework has come up in both of mine just with concerns about factories being temporarily shut down or not responding. I know some of them were scheduled to reopen this week, and I'm have a meeting with Triplet tomorrow to follow up on that one. But when I was talking with Russell, they were still having an issue with casework as well, and that was an area of concern for them.
Other questions or comments? All right, ready to move on?
That's the end of our focus topic, and so that's the end of our agenda.
All right, looks like we've got about 20 minutes then before the regular board meeting starts. So, Christine, you want to advise us on what we're going to do now?
We will adjourn and we will end our live stream and then hang out in the room for further instructions.
All righty, guys, you have a good evening. We're going to home get some sleep.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
for the
Dave.
work you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
We're adjourned.
Good night.
Night.